Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today I have the opportunity to work on a classic and help restore it for Ray. Ray has sent me several of his Penn SpinFishers, and he's been enamored with replacing the bearings in these with the hybrid ceramic bearings that are available from Boca Bearing Corp. And Boca Bearings provides ceramics for fishing reels and a host of bearings for all kinds of applications, radio control cars, industrial applications, all those kinds of things. But they've been featuring the ceramic bearings ABEX 7s, which is the highest rating you can get for a fishing reel, and most precise and most efficient of the bearings that they offer for fishing reels. And well, we've been working on these to show you how to take these reels apart, how to make the changeover to the hybrids, and even explaining a little bit about why you would like to use them. And that's a question I get frequently, particularly on spinning reels. On the casting reels, bait casting reels or ocean going reels or the like, folks understand that a reel that has reduced friction on the spool bearings can help that reel cast further, but sometimes it's not as obvious as to why you would want to do that on a spinning reel. And the most obvious reason around here, and we're in New Jersey, but if you're fishing in a saltwater environment, and this is a saltwater reel, they're not going to rust. Hybrid bearings do not rust. They're made out of ceramics, well, they're more efficient than the steel bearings that are its counterparts, like we would see here. This is an original steel bearing. We've removed the case as we've gotten started for the service, and this one's easy enough. You just push the bearing through, and well, we're going to replace it after we do some cleaning in that. But Ray has asked me to service the reel and to upgrade these, and quite honestly, it does need some service. We have some old dried grease on the main gear. We'll show you how to take this reel apart, how to service it, and how to keep it fishing, and of course how to upgrade or hot rod this reel to the ceramics. All right, well, what we just did there was we took off the spool by taking off the adjuster. Now we're going to remove the axle shaft to remove this. And quite honestly, I don't remember if we have to remove this AR override in this one. Some of the Penn reels, the SpinFishers, the early series, you do need to remove this override. Well, we'll see what we can do. All right, we're going to remove the two screws that are holding on the tie-down bar for your axle shaft. A good place to tell you to take pictures as you're working on the fishing reel. That way, if you get lost, you'll have a reference point in terms of what you took off, when you took it off, where you took it off from, and well, when you go to reinstall, where it belongs. So take the pictures. Of course, I'm taking pictures. I do that with a video camera. You don't need to use a video camera for your pictures. Just use your phone. Take the video if you like. That's always wonderful too. I don't encourage you not to do that. Just saying you don't need to. All right, let's see if we can bring the main gear out. And as I kind of sort of suspected, we can't. All right, we're going to have to remove this override to do that. And to remove the override, we have to come up top and remove the rotor nuts. These are old school. They do not have instant anti-reverses in them. Rather, the rotor is, and the anti-reverse is controlled by an anti-reverse dog. We remove the rotor nut. Now we pull up and out on the rotor. This has a finger dog that runs on the shaft. That's the next to come up. This just simply slides up and off. Some of the rotors that you will find will have an anti-reverse dog with a C-clip or an E-clip on it. That's not this one. And then we have to take off the axle shaft, or the override shaft here. You do that by removing the screw in the bottom of the throw arm. And when I take my pieces and parts off, they go right into a parts tray. That way I don't risk losing them. I use a fast food container for that. Notice how that screw is set. We'll show you how to reset it when we bring it back in, but you're going to pop that spring right now. And I've said screw. You're going to pop the spring, unfortunately, because you have to remove that Sometimes you can work that main gear around this little piece, but I rarely ever have any luck doing that. So I just removed the shaft. We'll show you how to put that back together in a moment. Now we can remove the main gear. We'll remove our crosswind block. That's this. And then we'll remove our oscillation gear. And then take a picture here, because you're going to notice that there's a kind of a yoke, not a full collar, and the collar faces away from your override. So when you go to reinstall, make sure that's the direction that you put it on. And again, pieces and parts go into the parts tray. And like they say, this concludes the disassembly portion of the program. Well, there's a lot of dirt in there, so we're going to take a moment here to clean that up. I'm going to use some penetrating oil to kind of dissolve that stuff. Cotton swab to mop it up. Get that old grease out of there, because if you don't get rid of the old grease, probably going to come back and jam a gear or something later on. And as long as you have the reel apart and you're doing all of this work to clean it up and make sure that everything is good, no sense just kind of running away from it and leaving it there. I'm just using a little pick right now to pull that stuff out. You can see one of the bearings we're going to have to replace on the other side here as we clean the case. Okay, we've got that case pretty clean here. Let's get that other bearing out. To get the other bearing out, you're going to need to remove the little cap on this side. We can push through on that now, just like we pushed through on the other one. And that's your second bearing. All three bearings on this reel are the same. Okay, just clean up the oscillation gear. We can get started with getting this back together again and replacing those bearings. So it's not a very difficult operation to actually replace the bearings themselves on these reels. It is a little tough in terms of the process you need to go through. You're going to take the whole reel apart. As you see, there's nothing we haven't touched here in terms of taking it apart. And well, you just need to be prepared for that. I guess the first two bearings, or at least one of the bearings, would be easy to do. But the rest of them, well, you need a little bit more work. Okay, I'm going to remove the collar, remove the bearing. That's two of the three. The other one belonged in the other side plate. Those are the three that will be replaced. Just going to get those out of the way. While I have my rotor off, I'm going to spray the penetrating oil in the seams of the bales. Just work it in. That'll flush out any dirt that you may have there. And we can go get the bearings. Again, they're from Boca Bearing. The site is bocabearing.com. bocabearings.com, it's plural. And I will leave the part number in here if you're interested. Part number in here for these bearings for this reel. Simple straight up insert. Make sure it snaps in. Make sure it's flush to the case. We can put the cover back on this side. And these bearings are designed to run dry. That's the maximum efficiency of this. It's a dry running bearing. Oil will actually create friction and heat and will slow the performance of the reel. Now that may not be as important for you in a spinning reel as it is in a casting reel, or it may not be as important to you when you're drop fishing as opposed to casting. But the whole idea with these bearings is to make this reel run more efficient, kind of improve on a classic, and well, by running it efficiently, it'll turn easier, and you won't have to exert all of that energy every every cast you make and every retrieve you make. And at the end of the day, you're going to have a smoother running reel that you're going to enjoy fishing with, rather than kind of complaining about that you spent the day on the water and now you're tired from cranking all the day or what have you. All right, I need a little bit more help here. Trying to find my small screwdriver. There's a little scraper. Seems like some of this grease has gotten embedded in there pretty good and shellacked. So just light scraping. Don't get aggressive. You don't need to do that. And then we'll take our bristle brush and pull through to clean those teeth. While I'm cleaning it, I'm inspecting to make sure that the teeth are clean there. And of course, we got this cleanup in aisle 7 on this side. This is pretty caked with grease as well. How does it get caked up on the side? Usually it means that the reel was stored that side down, and well, gravity works, and all of that grease that was in the case probably came out. These are beautiful gears. They're well made. This mops up easily. Okay, we've checked, we've cleaned. I'm going to grease the main gear, and then we can start the reassembly. When you go to grease your reels, use fishing reel grease only. Don't use general household greases or automotive greases or that. I get asked that a lot. Can I use the automotive grease? And I say, well, I don't know. You want to use fishing reel grease in your car? No. Well, then, if you don't want to do that, then I would recommend you don't do the automotive greases and fishing reels. Okay. Burring goes on. This one floats in the case. There is no stop below here. So just be aware that it might fall out the bottom as you're doing your work here. Press this in, make sure that it is flush. Next up would be your tie-down collar. Remember what we said, the tie-down collar goes away from where that post is going to be. So it'll go like this. And then I'm going to get my screw starter if I can find it. And the 2 screws that belong in that little collar. We'll start with the 1. And as I get it started, that's about all I want to use my screw starter for. I do not finish screws with my screw starter. It is a split-bladed screwdriver. It's been my friend for a while. I don't want to twist those out of alignment, break the tool. Okay, we're in with that. Next up, what we'd like to do is put our oscillation gear in. The oscillation gear gets grease on all 3 sides, on the back, on the teeth, and on the face when we get over there. That's because everything touches something and runs. Make sure that we do that. Then we want to put our main gear in. Probably could have put the crosswind block on first. Let's grab that crosswind block. Get some grease in there. The crosswind block needs to fit over the stud. And now we can go ahead and put that override in place. All right, that spring is still in there. It sits in a little pinhole in the bottom here. If it came loose on you, don't worry. You're aiming for this corner with the other one. So just knock that off. We can worry that in a moment. Bring this through. Now there is a little plastic cap on the back end that you may knock off. If you do, don't worry it. Know that that's where it came from. Bring this over, nest it into your little angle there, just like that. And then you want to push down with this piece and turn to set this. Now you're set. You push down and there's slight rotation to set the spring. So you do that, go get that little piece of plastic again. hold down on your top part of this, seat that, and you can get your override arm. Place that over the rectangular mount. Put your screw in, tighten that up. And now you've got your main gear in. And you reseat your crosswind block. Yeah, make sure that that lever, long arm, is behind that lever. We can set our rotor on now. There is a keyway here. Make sure that it goes down and sits tight inside. Next up we bring our, oops, that was an oops. We want to put our anti-reverse on. Anti-reverse goes, ratchet goes. You need to aim your ratchet for that post. Bring that down, make sure that it's working. It's working. Now we can bring that back on. And remember, this is free floating, so you might have to pull up on your pinion gear. Pinion gear goes on. Rotor nut goes on. We can tighten that down. Give it a spin, make sure everything's spinning nice and easy. It is. Next up then, we can put the bearing for the side plate on. I prefer to put it into the case rather than on there. And then we can mount our axle shaft after we've cleaned that. Light coating of grease onto the axle shaft. And even more than that, it's going to scrape out as you go through your pinion gear. Aim the flat side forward. Have to back down that block. Find the flat side of the block. I think I just have to bring this down a little bit. There you go. Now if you're working on a Penn Battle or a Fierce with an instant anti-reverse override, you won't have to do the one thing, but make sure that you set that stud to the bottom, because you're not going to be able to back like I did on this one. You do not have an override on those reels. So you need to make sure that you're absolutely on the bottom when you're setting these. Alright, that's the first one is set. Line up the second one. And again, there's a flat side on that axle shaft. You need to have that flat side facing you. Otherwise your plate won't work. I'm not sure I have that. I have a little bit of a rise here. There we go. I've had folks just bring in a reel because it's not working. It's not working because they didn't put this clip on where it was flat to the assembly. And then I couldn't understand why the back of the main gear was hitting it. These are precise mechanical instruments here. They've been well engineered. You need to respect how they come together, and you need to repeat that should you take them apart. Okay, all good there. One more bearing. That's in the case. We can bring our case over. When you put the case on, make sure you have a nice tight seam. We're going to our parts tray now. Pick this up. I'll tighten these down. So this is an inshore reel. It's not as heavy duty as the bigger SpinFishers, but it's a nice addition and it has its place. It's a 40 size reel. So think of inshore. Not too many folks use this one for surf casting. Maybe now with the braid they do. The braid has its own problems with this reel in terms of wearing the metal parts. But overall, this is meant for big fish. It's got a simple design, as you saw. It's got great components inside of it. It's built to last. All right, that's that and this. And normally, you'd expect to see some significant drag in here. And there's only one Teflon washer in here, so a lot of times you don't even need to open this up if you don't want to, but might as well show you. You have a big clip. Oh, in this case, we have an HT100 washer. Sometimes this is a Teflon washer in some of the models. Just be aware of it. Check it, make sure it's clean. This one's fine. You can run them dry, which is what's being done here. We'll continue to allow that to run dry. If it has dirt and debris on it, of course, you want to clean it out. Start by anchoring one side into the groove, just walking it around until the entire piece is into the groove. We'll bring that over, set this in, tighten down your adjuster. There's no more parts in the tray other than the 3 bearings that I replaced. Once it's tight, you can loosen it off. All right. What did we do? We took the reel completely apart, including that AR override shaft, to show you how that works. We replaced them all with the hybrid ceramic bearings from Boca bearings. Told you a little bit about why you want to do that. And, well, this one's ready for a test. Just clean off some of that. I guess I can get rid of this glove as it seems to be transferring some grease and the like over to the case. Clean that up. Let's give it a test. Spins nice and easy. Now you're going to hear a little bit of noise. And the noise is because the ceramic bearings are a little bit noisier. They run dry. They're intended to run dry. If you don't like the noise, a drop of oil can do, but that will slow the performance of the reel. Beautiful reel overall. Let's test the bail function. Everything's running great. All right, that's how you take apart, you service, and you upgrade the reel to hybrid ceramic bearings. Again, particularly useful because it will enable the reel to spin easier. Particularly valuable if you're using it in a saltwater environment because the salt will corrode and eat away at the steel bearings. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that. Before I leave, I want to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, rescue, and everybody involved in keeping us out of harm's way. I want to thank you for watching. I want to encourage you again to subscribe. And if you like the video, please like it. It all helps me to continually develop and improve the channel. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing everybody a great day.